Now it's time to move into phase 4, which is picking your final concept. And we're getting pretty close to bringing the client into the decision-making process with us. And your goal at the end of this page is to choose the final concept and variation of that concept. So you can explore more details like color and arrangement. Adapting the logo to smaller spaces like horizontal, vertical, and square spaces is going to be very helpful in determining which logo is the most flexible, adaptable, and viable. This page is all about finding out your logo flexibility, and logos that do not adapt very well for the long term may need to be revisited in terms of concept and structure. So here we are, phase 4. This is the time where we start to apply this to square spaces. We start to make the logo very small to see how does it translate as a very small logo. Can we read everything? Is it flexible? Is it realistic? This is the page where we're going to test this out. I have two different concepts, the one on the left and the one on the right, and there's a little variation of the first concept in the middle. And this is where we need to start eliminating ideas. And let's do this by adapting it to a square icon. This is going to be a mobile app, so eventually this will have to be translated to a smaller square space. But even if it wasn't an app, it still needs to be able to work in square spaces because there's a lot of digital media, profile pics that all exist in square spaces. So if your logo can't fit in that space, you might need to find a way to do this. So we don't have to put the entire logo into a square space like this. So let's take this example. We're going to copy it, put it in your typical square space. So a lot of people can do this and their logo can get away with it. I think here you start to lose a little bit of the arrow there, and we're going to have to figure out a solution for that. But this can work. But if you have a long name, rarely do people fit the entire brand name on this little square icon or app. A lot of times they use a symbol or they use a brand asset from their logo design and bring that into the icon to represent the company. So in this case, instead of doing this, we could take this F symbol, and that could be the symbol that helps represent our logo. So we're starting to kind of think about branding at this point. And let's make that a little bit different contrast to show that that would probably be a different color. So I think that works really well here. So let's see how the other one looks. So this is the one where we eliminated the arm on the left side and it looks like an upside down J. This is confirmation. This is kind of why we adapt the logo to different sizes, because it helps us in our elimination process. So because of this, I just don't quite see it as a standalone F. We're going to completely eliminate this version. So now we're down to our two final concepts. We only have two to work with here, which makes life a lot simple when it comes to figuring out color. So here's the problem you have with this version. So you have this nice natural spacing between the U and the X, the negative space they call it, and we're able to get the arrow in there. But to be able to capture this whole idea and concept, we're going to have to bring this entire block in to test it out. So let's make that a little bit of a lighter color. So as you can see, it looks like UX. It doesn't look like Flux. So that's an issue. And if we were to bring the whole logo in here, so let's bring it in and do the whole logo, because it's not a really long word, so we can get away with it here, but you can't always get away with it. Now you can see it, but it's pretty small. When you zoom out, it doesn't have the same impact as just that simple F with the arrow. So because we were able to do this, we're starting to realize that perhaps the left concept is stronger than the right concept because of this flexibility of having this standalone icon and symbol that can be used as a brand asset later. Let's do one more test. Let's bring both of these logos down. Let's make them really small. And we can even zoom out more. Can we make out everything? Can we read video? Yes, we can. Can we read every single letter, F-L-U-X, F-L-U-X? They both work really good in small levels. So this is not eliminating anything for me, but it does help me figure out, does video need to be made larger, more legible? Is there a problem with reading a particular character? I need to fix and address that issue right now. So we've done a couple of tests here. We did a visibility test. So we made our logo very small and we tested it out. We did a flexibility test. Can it adapt to a square environment? And eventually we're going to need to have a horizontal logo. The logo fits in this nice vertical space, but we're going to eventually need a horizontal logo if we need to put it in really narrow horizontal spaces, especially in the top of an app or a website. we need to kind of be able to adapt that. So that's another adaptation we're going to need to be able to do down the road. And so there's one more test. We did a visibility, we did a flexibility test. There's one more test to do. Does this logo mark and logo type, does it hit the target market or satisfy the client's desires? So does the logo fit with what the client was requesting in the brief? Does it fit with the target market of the client's company? And if you don't know this information, you need to work with the client to be able to figure out what their target market is. Age, demographic, are they going to be mostly male, female? If the style you feel doesn't match with what they're looking for, you need to go back and modify it a little bit before presenting to the client. This is probably one of the things that I think a lot of designers skip, is they get excited about how cool the logo looks, how flexible and trendy it looks, but they forget to go back and go, okay, what did the client request? Did they send examples to me of the kind of style they like? Does it match up with the style that they are expecting? Because a client has a certain expectation. And if you fall flat or fail on that expectation, they're going to be disappointed. It's going to be a struggle to continue to get the logo approved. So we also need to keep this client requests in mind. Anything that they've requested, hey, I don't want a mascot, I don't want this, make sure that you're following client requests, but you're also hitting their target market. And that's really important, because if the logo can't hit the target market, it fails. It's not converting new customers. It's not making new sales. So this is when we have to be careful that our logo has to look really good, has to be flexible, but it also has to translate to more money, more profit for you or your client, whoever you're designing the logo for. It has to be a positive impact on the brand and the company, and that's going to be hitting that target market. So in this case, we have a young demographic, 18 to 35 or so. They're going to be mobile. They're going to have their iPhones. They're going to be very video driven, very image driven. So I think we have something really simple, but also it's not necessarily gender specific. I think it's gender neutral. And it kind of reminds me of some of the examples they supplied us in the client brief. Just really simple sans serif typography. There's nothing fancy or high end about this brand. It's a very approachable brand. So it's passed a couple of tests, or at least my own personal tests, and that test can be different for you as well. But these are the three that I really, really focus on. And we have this one issue before we move forward, and this is where doing that flexibility and visibility test really helps us. This is the issue. So remember when we had this issue about this overlapping arrow in the L? I feel like it gets lost. And so I had a solution prior, shifting that F over to give more space, but it looked really awkward. So we're going to need to figure out a solution for this. So let's figure out a solution, evolve this concept just one more step, and I think we'll be ready for color. So let's make a copy of this so we can always look at our original for comparison. And I had an idea. What if we were to kind of displace this or remove an area here in the L and have it be cut out? And that way, when you have a little white space there with the arrow, it's not going to be overlapping the black, and it's going to have its own little carved out area. So what I want to do is I want to basically cut this out perfectly. So I'm going to use the offset path tool to do this. So I'm going to go up to Object, Path. I'm going to offset the path here. Let's do a preview. And we want to do a positive. So we're going to erase that negative sign, subtraction sign. That might be the right thickness, but we're going to have to test this out. So let's do a 0.3. Maybe something in the middle of 2 and 3. So 2.5 inches. Of course, you might not be in inches. So now we have two shapes here. We have our original shape and it expanded the path or offset the path. So now we have this bigger shape, and I can select the L and get the shape builder tool. Just hold down Option. I'm just going to erase that particular area of the shape. So now we have this nice, beautiful cutout that follows the same shape and curves as the arrow. So let's compare the two. What do we think works better? We have the top one and we have the bottom one. I think the top one is a better improvement because it's able to have that cutout space, and there's no overlapping of a color on black or whatever colors we decide to use. They're not going to be overlapping, which can give us a lot more flexibility when we apply our color.